Sounds of Health will be on site at Hamden Fest this year in Hamden, Connecticut at Town Center Park at June 8th. Be sure to stop by and say hello.
And this is my superstitious trick. I always have a Kleenex. It's usually tucked into a chair when I teach.
Oh, wow.
And that way I don't sneeze.
Oh, okay.
That sound okay?
Yeah, that sounds great. So kind of like having an umbrella ready so that it doesn't rain. Mm-hmm. That's great.
I wish
like
I was
that.
better at that.
Yeah, right. Me too. I wish I could keep the rain off. We've had so many rainouts for baseball.
Oh, that's right.
It's been awful. Welcome back to our favorite part of the week. It's time to listen to Sounds of Health, where we share the stories, people, and resources that help others to improve their physical, emotional, and financial well-being. Whether you're a health and wellness enthusiast or a beginner looking to develop some healthy habits, you've tuned into the right place. I'm your host, Dave McNiven, and today I'm excited to welcome our guest, Roxie Perregaux. Roxie is a board-certified health and wellness coach, certified personal trainer, and certified senior fitness specialist. She's the owner of Healthy Moves for You, where she encourages her clients to take the X out of ex-athlete. Roxie, welcome to Sounds of Health.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We're happy to have you. I know you and I have done some work together on the Health and Wellness Committee for the Hamden Regional Chamber of Commerce.
Yep.
Our listeners are starting to become really familiar with both of those things because we've had a number of guests from there. But it's been great getting to know you through that.
Yes.
And I'm excited to just talk to you about all of the things that you're doing in the community and the business that you have. But to get started, I'd love to learn more about your background and where you came from originally and what brought you to what you're doing now.
Okay, that could take the whole show.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I've moved around a lot, but if I can bring it to a concise point, born in Memphis, Tennessee.
Nice.
Moved to Chicago, moved around the states, mostly on the east side of the states. And through all those times, ended up in high school back in Chicago. And then through the times from actually grade school all the way through college, competing in different sports, and then after that, coaching different sports.
Gotcha.
So always involved in fitness.
What sports were you competing in?
Softball, track, gymnastics, and basketball.
Wow, a little bit of everything, huh?
Mm-hmm. And then I coached gymnastics and basketball.
Great.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. The coaching started when we had kids.
Yeah.
That's when I became a personal trainer. So that was 29 years ago.
And that was in Chicago at the time?
Actually, that was in Florida.
Oh, okay.
After college, I moved to Florida and got started in the restaurant and hotel business,
Wow.
which didn't last that long.
Okay.
That lasted about 6 months. Eventually ended up leaving corporate world at Xerox and getting married and having kids. And then when my kids were toddlers, that's when I got back into fitness and got a personal training certification. And then after that, as they grew older, I got them into sports, and then I ended up coaching their sports.
Of course,
Ended up coaching personal training clients for sports.
Oh, okay.
And that's where I am today, coaching seniors for sports.
Gotcha.
Or just activities, not necessarily sports, but sport-like activities.
So how many kids do you have?
Two.
And where were they born? Were you in Florida when you started the family? Or?
Yep, we were in Florida. They were
Okay.
both born in Florida. And now they live here, which is why we're here.
Okay.
Because we spent a good amount of time in both North and South Carolina, where they were raised.
Oh, that's great.
And then they found spouses up here in this part of the country and ended up moving up here. And we waited for them to move to the Carolinas, but they didn't come back. So we came up here.
That's great. I always wonder if that's what's going to happen to my wife and I as well. We have two boys and they're going to be going off to college in the next 3 or 4 years. And then it's, what do you do? I was born and raised here in Connecticut. So I lived in New York for a while, but I have never really moved anywhere else in the country. So it'd be interesting to see what happens. It's nice you got to follow your kids.
Yeah, it is. It's great being up here. We've been up here just about 3 years, coming up on 3 years, and I love it.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it up here, which I didn't expect, actually.
Yeah, that's great. It is a great place.
It is a great place. I love the South and everything about the South,
Yeah.
but this is pretty darn nice up here.
Yeah. My kids play baseball, so I think, at least my oldest, is always talking about going south when he goes to school. He just wants that weather. He wants to be playing year round.
The weather is great.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. A little different up here in the Northeast.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, a little bit of an adjustment. So you got into the personal training when you had your kids, and then you started to coach them. What sports did they play?
They played everything.
Yeah.
Soccer, baseball, basketball, and swimming for a little while. And then our daughter was in gymnastics as
Gotcha.
well.
And
She did all those as
Did
well.
you coach a little bit of everything, or were you focused on a couple of the different sports?
I coached gymnastics and basketball. That was it, really.
Yeah. Yeah, I was coaching my kids in basketball and baseball as they were growing up, and then they ditched me for basketball. They went to hockey. I wasn't a hockey player. I couldn't do that. So, but I did coach them through Little League for baseball, which,
Okay.
I mean, some of the best times of my life were doing that, and it was a lot of fun. I actually switched careers in order to do that.
Wow.
Yeah, I was working in nonprofit before, and it was a lot of nights and weekends, and I could see myself missing out on things as they were getting older and starting to get active and get involved. And this job of what I do now, I started with a insurance carrier selling Medicare as a captive agent. It gave me way more flexibility, and so I was able to really be there and to coach and participate.
That makes sense.
Yeah. It's interesting how things change as you go.
Yes, it is very, very. I had not worked with seniors except my first client was actually 87.
Oh, yeah.
My youngest client was 7.
Oh, wow.
And I'm currently, my dad, I coach virtually, and he's in Missouri, and he's 91.
Oh, that's great.
So yeah, it's quite a range of ages over the years.
Yeah, for sure. So when did you actually start Healthy Moves for You?
Let's see. That would be, I had my first company was called Fit Bods by Rox.
Okay.
And then when I became a health coach, when I started studying to become a health coach, I started Healthy Moves for You.
Okay.
And that brought everything together.
Where were you at that time?
That was in Charleston.
Okay. Gotcha. And was it something that was local to Charleston, or did you immediately start to work with people remotely as well?
Well, actually, I got there's the first certification as a health coach, just a basic health coach certification.
Yeah.
Then there's a master's certification, and then the national board certification. When I graduated from the master's program, our lockdown hit. It was during COVID, and we got the lockdown.
Wow.
So
Okay.
it hit about a month after that, after I graduated.
Yeah.
And I was in doctor's offices and, getting out there, telling my
Yeah.
story and trying to meet people and get clients. And then we had the lockdown.
So you had to pivot.
I pivoted and I learned how to do personal training online, which I had never done before.
Yeah.
And then I just decided to go for it since I was going to be inside so much. I went for the national board certification, which is about a 3-year studying situation.
That's great.
So that took 3 years. And
During that time, were you working with clients? Did you have clients that you worked with remotely during COVID and
I
during
had
lockdown?
health coaching clients that were part of my education.
Yeah.
That was pro bono. And then I had personal training clients. That was how I learned how to do personal training
so you're
online.
using Zoom and things like that?
Yes.
Gotcha.
So, which is great now because now
Yeah.
I can do that anywhere, from anywhere to anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, we all were forced to kind of pivot and change and adapt during that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I know my kids were playing baseball at the time and hockey. And I can remember like the coaches we were working with, and they had a trainer that they were working with. Like they adapted. They got on Zoom. They got the kids together. They were socializing. And it was really kind of amazing to see that we were able to kind of keep things going in that way.
That's interesting. I never thought about the sports with lockdown. I've, of course,
Yeah.
heard about it with the schools and
Yeah.
having to go virtual, but I never thought about kids' sports.
The schools were much more challenging, I think. That was a really
Yeah.
challenging time for schools and education. I mean, they did it, and they did it successfully for the most part.
Yeah.
But the other part, the fun stuff, the sports and the exercise, that was great because it was engaging the kids and it was letting them have that social outlet when we were all
Yeah.
stuck inside.
Oh, great point.
Yeah. So that was really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So from there, where were you then?
In Charleston.
You were in Charleston. Okay. So how long have you been here in Connecticut?
Coming up on 3 years.
Oh, okay. Wow. So pretty much right after.
We moved here in August, and I took my medical boards at the end of December.
Okay.
No, at the end of October, and I got my grades at the end of December.
Gotcha. Okay. That's awesome.
And I passed.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So then you move yourself, your family, your business all to Connecticut, right? You said your kids were already here?
Yes.
Okay. So
Yep.
that's great.
Our daughter, I came here in 2020.
Yeah.
Our daughter was getting ready to have their first child.
Oh, nice.
And so originally we thought we would just do a 6 months here, 6 months there type of thing. And
Yeah.
that just never was going to work. So
yeah, you were way too long.
we bit the bullet and came up here, and now we've got 2 grandchildren, 2
Oh, that's great.
granddaughters.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
That must be exciting.
It is. It's great to be up here for them. It's great to be up here for our own kids.
Yeah.
And they're within an hour away, so it all works out.
Yeah, that's amazing. Awesome. And how is the business going now that you're here in Connecticut?
It's finally 3 years seems like a long time, but now everything is clicking.
Yeah.
I've got my personal training clients. I've got my health coaching clients. I'm doing a lot of talks, more than I've done before. And that's a real focus for 2024 is to get out there and get my message out there. I have 3 talks that I'm promoting, which is longevity, and then women's health, and also family caregivers and caregivers themselves on building their foundation for both fitness, nutrition, and self-care.
Oh, that's great. That's something that is very much needed.
Definitely. So the talks also have an optional workshop.
Okay. So are those in-person talks?
Both. They're in person and virtual.
Okay.
Especially with the family caregivers or any caregivers, because caregivers are never all together in the same place at the same time.
Right.
So everything for that part of my talks and my workshops is all virtual.
That's great. So do you do them separately? Like the in-person is at a separate time and then the virtual is
Yes.
another. Okay. Gotcha. So you're offering both options.
Right.
Okay. And where do you do them in person?
It just depends. I've done them at different senior centers, the Guilford Senior Center, the Milford Senior Center, as well as just in offices. And with the caregivers, again, those are recorded. So those are actually, the talks are very brief, about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So I condense them. And then the workshops are a series of 10-minute videos that either are a fitness video, an exercise video, or cooking video, or anything nutrition. And then different self-care types of self-care videos.
That's great. That sounds like something that people can fit into their life pretty easily.
Well, you think about it, you're at work all day, you come home, you have another job,
Yeah.
whether you have little kids or you're caring for older folks.
Sure.
There's a lot to do after the hours of work.
Yeah.
after work
Or
hours.
even if you just are on your own and you own a home or, like there's just so many things that take up our time and effort.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. And people, I think, especially caregivers, there's a very real fear that they're going to get burnt out. Mm-hmm. Burnout happens constantly to people, and especially for people who are caring for others.
Yes.
If that's their profession and then they're doing it also in their personal life, it can get overwhelming.
Mm-hmm. The stress is a big factor, and it's a burnout.
Absolutely.
And so helping people understand that they don't have to sit down and meditate for 10 minutes,
Yeah.
that there's a lot of different types of self-care.
Right.
That they can find where they can get into the zone and release those hormones that are positive hormones that help us fight diseases and improve our immune system.
That's great. Now, the focus, when I go to your website and, the focus looks like it's mostly working with seniors, people who were athletes prior to this and maybe have become less active. And
Exactly.
I love the whole idea of, taking that X out of ex-athlete. Like you're an athlete, right?
Right.
You earned this title. You can keep it for the rest of your life. There are ways you can continue.
Exactly. And they don't have to be specific, basketball, like what I've trained before,
Yeah.
basketball, gymnastics. It doesn't have to be those types of sports. A few months ago, I actually declared grandparenting as an official sport.
Fantastic.
When you think about
I love
it. But gardening can be a sport.
Yeah.
Really, almost anything can be a sport if you have the sports mind focus. And that's where some of the health coaching comes in with my 60, 70, 80-year-olds
Yeah.
that want to get back to gardening, for instance. And if we can look at it as a sport, it just helps them progress in their physical side much faster.
That's really interesting. So people that are coming to you, is it all seniors or do you work with all age groups?
I can work with any age group. I have worked with every age group.
You have, yeah.
But right now my focus is on seniors.
Is on seniors. So when someone comes to you, are they talking about the activities that they love to do and how to get back to them? And then you're designing things around that? Or how does it work?
Yes and no.
Okay.
They come to me with the activities that they want to get back to, sports or activities.
Yeah.
Or they may have had an injury and they can't go back to that specific sport, but they want to pick
Gotcha.
up a new sport similar to that.
Yeah.
Pickleball, for instance. Everybody wants to play
Everybody
pickleball.
wants to play pickleball.
So maybe some type of injury caused them not to be able to play pickleball again.
Sure.
So
yeah.
we look at something else. Maybe it's paddleball, maybe it's bocce,
Right.
whatever it is that gets them up and moving and using those muscles, improving their positive attitude. And then I bring in nutrition in there to support all of that.
That's great. And so these are one-on-one coaching sessions that you do with people?
They are personal training and health coaching is one-on-one, both virtual and in person, or in person. And they're typically an hour session, but I can do that in 30 minutes if their schedule dictates that they just need 30 minutes.
So for those busy grandparents who need to get off to the
Right.
activities, gotcha.
Right.
You can fit it in.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I honestly do know a lot of grandparents, seniors that are very active, more active than some of us in our 40s. Like, it's amazing. Some of the people, my mother, for instance, she's at every sports game. She has 5 grandchildren, so she goes to everything.
There you go. It's a sport.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
It is a
Getting
sport.
to them. Yeah.
It's just getting the message out there that when we get to 60, 65 years old, we get the idea. First, we get that retirement bug.
Yeah,
We
sure.
think, well, we're going to retire. And then if we don't really have a plan, a lot of times we just kind of sit back and wait.
Yeah.
And I think previous generations, that was definitely the idea that it was time to just sit back, but we
Right.
neglected to stay active.
Yeah.
And so getting the message out there to change that mindset that now we're 60, 65, maybe 70, and let's get a different mindset of looking to the future
Yeah.
and the bright open future of 20, 30, 40 years of being able to move and get around and play sports or play just with kids or even with just our pets.
Yeah,
Throwing
for
the ball,
sure.
getting out there in a park or the beach, grabbing a couple people, going for a walk. Anything to keep us moving so that we can enjoy all these years without what quite often happens is we retire, we go do a pickup game, maybe a basketball pickup game in the neighborhood, and then we're on the couch for 2 weeks.
Right. Because the pain.
Right, exactly. So taking away those aches and pains by having consistent movement.
Right. Gotcha. So consistent movement that allows you to continue to do the activities that you enjoy.
Exactly. Yeah. And then the nutrition that supports that.
Yeah. I mean, even something like golf. I play a little bit of golf, but I have friends who play a lot, and a lot of people that I know who play it, well into their 70s, 80s. That is something you can do, but it also takes a toll.
It does. It requires a lot of stretching, and you need to support those muscles because they're doing things that we don't do in our normal everyday activities.
Right. Yeah,
So
that's very
it's
true.
a very different type of sport to start or to get back into if you've had a break.
Yeah.
Is getting that back flexible. It's so important, and getting the legs and the abs to be able to support those swings.
Yeah. Yeah, really important.
Yeah, because it can do some damage.
It can. Yeah, for sure. Yep. So that's great. I mean, it sounds like, what you're doing is so important for people just to maintain an active lifestyle, to maintain that healthy lifestyle. I think we're redefining what it means to retire these days too. People used to think of retirement as, oh, now I can rest. Now I can sit on a beach and do nothing and relax. And really, I think retirement is more giving yourself the freedom to work if you want to, not because you have to.
Right.
And to do all of those things, stay active and be healthy so that you can prolong your life. You can live, you can enjoy that time more.
Right. There's no reason at 85 years old that we can't be traveling and going on excursions and enjoying sightseeing or whatever type of excursion. It could be hiking or walking. It's going to be active for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
And then not going back to if it's a cruise, going back to the ship and just like passing out.
Right, yeah.
But going back to the ship, maybe showering, going down to the pool, having a good time at the pool, and still having that energy to go out at night, dancing or a fine dinner, or even another excursion.
Yeah.
So having that energy to do that is so important because we have 20 or 30 years with a lot of time.
Yeah.
We may
absolutely.
be busier than we've ever been, which is quite often the case.
Yeah.
But to be able to be busy without aches and pains so that we're enjoying ourselves and have energy to continue to be busy is the key.
Right. Because when pain gets involved, that's when people start to shut down.
Right.
That's going to affect you emotionally, and it's going to affect your mood, and it changes things. Then that's a real barrier.
Right.
Yeah. But there are ways to overcome that pain through physical activity and exercise.
And nutrition.
And nutrition.
Get the
okay.
nutrition in there to help the inflammation, reduce the inflammation.
Yeah.
Sometimes completely eliminate it. And it's not that hard.
Yeah.
It's just introducing different foods and making that, as well as the movement, making those foods consistent in your diet or your food plan.
Right. Well, that's the challenge, right? To have these things become habitual for people.
Exactly. And that's a lot of where the health coaching comes in.
Yeah.
Is helping people discover what their goals are and create that big goal out in the future with a lot of little goals in the meantime.
Right.
So as we're hitting those goals, we're having a positive experience And that motivates us to continue on that path to the next goal and eventually the full goal at the end.
Right. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I think it's hard for people to do that on their own too.
It is. It takes some guidance. Discovering the goal is always interesting because quite often people come with one goal in mind and we find out that that's really not the real goal that they want to hit, but it's one that's in between the real goal, the goal for now, and that real goal, which we uncover.
That's interesting.
It is. It really is.
Do you have an example of that at all?
People quite often think of personal training and health coaching for weight loss. That's the first thing that comes to mind.
Right.
But when I meet with them and we just do some discovering of their lifestyle, their past lifestyle, things that they've enjoyed, things they've been successful at, and then we find that actually it wasn't the weight loss so much as that is part of the goal, but it's being able to play, for instance, the pickleball,
Yeah.
or picking up a new sport, or now I'm going to become a grandparent. I think I need to lose weight so that I can get around. Well, that's not really, that is part of it, but the real goal is to take those aches and pains away through movement,
Yeah.
so that you can get back into the movements that you want to do, in this case, the grandparenting,
Right.
without the aches and pains, so that when the kids come over the next day, you're not sitting on the couch in pain.
That actually seems like it would be motivating, because I think that goal of losing weight and getting healthier, it's not fun,
Right.
Like nobody's having fun doing that. but if the purpose of it is because I want to play pickleball, or I want to be able to keep up with my grandkids, I don't want to be the old guy, behind them trying to keep up. I want to be there with them. That's actually a lot of fun. That seems to be more motivating for people.
Right. So we've done a mind shift.
Yeah.
So we've taken that mind shift of just losing weight with a number,
Right.
to an experience, where now they have something in their mind to focus on. So really the unfun part,
Yeah.
of eating or not eating, or eating the things that maybe you don't want to eat, or introducing new foods that you're just kind of skeptical about, doesn't take the center stage anymore.
Right.
It's just a stepping stone to get to that real goal.
That's awesome. Have you come across like challenges that people have that seem to be universal? Like, what are the most common things that you seem to help people to overcome?
Usually it's an injury, or it's the surgery from an injury. Hips, backs, and shoulders are my biggest, and knees are my biggest ones.
Yeah.
And that's not unusual. As we age, our joints just start to give out and they become weak. But if we can catch people, and I like to catch them at 40, but I
Yeah.
don't always get there. So quite often that's when I get them at 60, 70, and 75.
Right.
And we're overcoming the challenges of post-op. If I can get them before surgery and I can get their muscles trained, help them to get their muscles trained for their hips, if it's the hip surgery, back, of course, getting the abdominals mostly is the big part, and the
Yep.
hip flexors will help anybody pre-op and definitely post-op. And that's where I can come in with physical therapists. If they've had that surgery, they have an amount of physical therapy based on their insurance.
Right.
When that's over, more often than not, they're not continuing with the exercises.
Yeah.
And quite often, if it's what I've seen with a hip surgery, a hip replacement, is a dislocation. So now they have to go back. And we start at ground zero from the post-op side. And now if we can get to them before at pre-op and get those hip flexors really strong, get the abs and the lower back really strong, then they have a much greater chance of getting out of post-op in really good shape and ready
Right.
to go back to that sport.
And do you work with the physical therapists?
Yes.
You do? Okay.
Some.
Yeah. Right.
Some continue to think that the patients do those exercises once they're on their own. And sometimes that happens, but most often
Yeah.
not.
Yeah. It's tough. I mean, again, creating that habit for people is difficult.
I think it's hard when you're in the industry. You sometimes become quite surprised at people that don't understand what we understand.
Yeah. Right.
And kind of take it for granted that they've had the physical therapy, so they'll just continue. But unless that physical therapy, like a therapist, like a personal trainer, unless we're there, people aren't going to do what they've been told to do.
Right.
It's just natural.
Yeah. It's easier not to.
It's easier not to. It's easier to realize that you don't really know what you're doing,
Yeah.
and that can cause some fear or some embarrassment.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And so what are your goals then with the business? I know you had mentioned that you have a couple of spots left, right, for your personal training and your health coaching. Talk to me about what that program is for the people that might be interested.
All right. Well, it's a 10-session package, and we just start wherever they're at. That could be at the very beginning of fitness, or it could be health coaching with nutrition or self-care. But it's a 10-session package of 1-hour sessions, and they can do those however they want to. Quite often I have people 2 or 3 times a week. Occasionally I have people 5 times a week. It just depends mostly on their budget and their schedule. And then that 10-session package, I have 2 slots open because of the variety of different times. It could be 3 or 4 times a week.
Oh, yeah, that's
so
great.
That's where I get into a lot of hours.
Yes, and you only have a certain number of spots, right? Because
Right.
you don't have unlimited time.
Exactly, because I'm also doing the talks and the
Right.
workshops. And I also do a membership that's from my website for Retro Moves, which is moving and grooving to the sounds of the 70s. It's a chair and standing class. It's a lot of fun. That's why I'm wearing this outfit, because I'm tie-dyed out for moving and grooving with to the sounds of the 70s, which I'm doing at the YMCA later today.
Oh, that's great.
But that's a membership where folks get a 37, 38, 39-minute class that's a video online, and they get 4 different videos a month.
Oh, wow.
And they can stay with the membership as long as they want to. They can cancel. If they're taking, cancel it November to take November and December off because they're busy, and come back and join again in December or January.
And these are videos you're recording on a regular basis? You're refreshing them all the time?
Yeah. Right
That's
now I have
great.
40 videos.
Oh,
so
wow.
we're set.
Okay, that's
so
great.
that's something else I also do in person. So I teach that right now at the Milford Senior Center.
Very
And
nice.
I only really want to teach one more class because it could be 2 or 3 times a week.
Yeah.
And again, those hours rack up.
Yeah. And the company is just you, right? You don't have
It
other
is just
people
me.
working with you.
Right.
Okay.
It is just me. So I've got the personal training, the health coaching, the Retro Moves membership,
Okay.
the talks and the workshops. And that's good.
that
and I have
that seems like a
grandchildren.
lot.
So I have that sport.
Right, exactly. And the website that people can go to, it's healthymovesforyou.com.
Yes.
Okay. So everything that we're talking about, people can go to healthymovesforyou.com. They can learn more about you and all of these services that you're providing, and they can opt in and get involved.
Absolutely. Yep. It's all right there.
Awesome. Now, for your personal journey, are there things that you have a daily practice of, or things that you make sure that you're doing in order to maintain your health and wellness?
I do. And I preface it with something my son taught me years ago was, how bad do you want it? And that had to do with getting up early to work out, which is hard to do for a majority of people.
Yeah.
But it became a habit, and my son gets some credit for that, but my dad at 91 has been working out at 6 o'clock in the morning, 6 days a week since he was 40.
Wow, that's amazing.
So that's a big inspiration. I'm lucky to have a lot of relatives who unfortunately had different things happen in their lives. My grandpa had polio since he was 22, lived to 91,
Wow.
always in crutches, but it didn't stop him from living his life. They owned a store, he did taxes, was very, very active in his church and the community.
That's incredible.
Things like that have kept me motivated, and having my dad getting up at 6 and then my son saying, how bad do you want it? I want it. So when I get up, I do about a 5 or 10 minute meditation, just kind of get up, wake myself up. And then I take about a 10-minute walk. I have either 6 or 6:30 client almost every day of the week. So that's why it's early, and I need to get back in to get ready for that client.
Right, yeah.
If I don't get my workout in the morning for some reason, then it's going to happen at some point during the day. So it's a time to sit down and find out, when is it going to happen? It's non-negotiable.
Yeah, gotcha.
And that doesn't have to be a full bore workout. What's great about getting into your 60s and 70s, I'm 63, is that it's actually easier to stay in shape. The effort that we have to put forth for our heart, for cardio.
Yeah.
For instance, if you're 35 or 40, the heartbeats per minute for your maximum exertion of 75% of your heart rate is 135 to 140 beats per minute. That same exertion of 75% for a 65, 70-year-old is 105 to 110 beats a minute.
Oh, wow. That's
So as you
interesting.
get to 75 and 80, it gets closer to 103 to 105. So we're still working harder.
Yeah.
And we're still working hard, but it's not as hard as when we were younger.
Right.
So it's easier to do that. We just have to do it longer. The cardio is preferable to be 30 to 45 minutes, 5 days a week. And then weights are different too as we get into our 60s and 70s. It's more resistance. So tubes or bands or balls.
Right.
There's no reason to lift heavy weights. There's no reason to do 25 lunges. It's just easier all the way around to keep our fitness up.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, it's less stress then too on them, less risk of injury.
That's why the lack of the heavy weights.
Right.
If we're using resistance bands or our body weight, then we have a better control over our joints, which, as I mentioned earlier, as we age, our joints really start to get inflexible.
Right,
And we need to
yeah.
increase that flexibility so that we can stay active.
And the cardio recommendation that you just mentioned, so you said 3 to 4 times a week? Is that what you said?
5 times would be great.
Okay. And you
3
said
to 4
30
is
to
good.
45 minutes?
Yes.
Okay. So that can be walking?
Walking is one of the best.
Okay.
Swimming is another one of the best.
Yeah.
It can be walking fast. It doesn't have to be, but a good pace.
Yeah.
A good clip, so you're not just lagging around.
Right. Yeah, sure.
Which there's nothing wrong with that either. As long as you're moving, is what I tell people. Just keep moving.
Right. Yeah. That's good advice.
And I do that with a lot of the groups, like the health and wellness group that we have.
Yeah.
The women in business class or group that I'm part of. I try to tell people, as well as my clients, everyone I can tell, really,
Yeah.
move every 30 minutes. Get up for 2 or 3, preferably 10, and move, stretch, walk in place, walk to the end of the building, go out to your car. If you're home, go to the mailbox 3 or 4 times.
Right.
Go up and down the steps. If you're going up and down the steps once, turn around and go back up and down a couple more times.
Yeah.
It doesn't take that much. 3, 4, 5, 10 minutes at the most, every half hour it's worth it.
Yeah. That makes a lot of difference. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see that.
And it keeps that momentum in our brain of keep moving. Don't sit too long.
Right. Yeah. Well, now everybody's got a device. I know my watch prompts me. It says time to stand up every 30 minutes.
Take advantage of it.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's great. So are there any other things that you are looking to promote at all? I know you said you have a couple of talks and things coming up. Anything you want to put out
The
there?
talks for that, again, it's longevity, women's health, because as women, heart disease is the strongest or the highest risk for us. Diabetes, osteoporosis, go into mental health quite a bit in that talk. And then there's a optional workshop for that, as well as the longevity talk, which, and then there's the caregiver, whether it's working for a company as a caregiver or it's you're your own family caregiver.
Right.
You're caregiving for your parents or possibly a child.
And what do you go into with the longevity topic?
Both fitness, nutrition, and self-care. That's part of everyone.
Right, of
It's
course.
the basis.
Yeah.
When it's for longevity, it's, again, grandparenting.
Yeah.
Looking at that retirement picture, looking at, I'm 75. I'm done. No, 75 is just the starting grounds.
Yeah.
Because we still have another 20, 30 years.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm going to 105.
Yeah.
I have no doubt. I plan on it. I'm going to do everything I can to get there. I was planning on doing cartwheels at 105, but I've hurt my shoulder. He said no. So the doctor said no more cartwheels.
All right. Well, I mean, you never know what technology is going to be between then and now, too. So you never know.
That's very true.
Right? I mean, you got some time.
You've given me some encouragement.
Never give up on it. Right?
Absolutely.
Doctor tells you you're never going to do something again. Well, just watch me.
Interesting that you say that. I had a doctor back in when I started the health coaching education.
Yeah.
So 2018 told me I had osteoarthritis in my ankle. I would never run again. If I was going to, it had to be on a very expensive, very high-tech treadmill. And I just said no. I proved him wrong. I started walking very slowly, walking faster, and ended up running 6 months later.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I don't run anymore, but I do walk. I do a fast walk, and I do an exercise walk, exhilaration walk, where we walk with tubes and stop every 5 or 10 minutes or wherever we can find a spot that has a bench, a pole, a fence, something we can wrap that tube around to do different exercises.
Oh, that's interesting. So what the tube is like a resistance?
A resistance tube.
Okay.
And you can wrap it around the side of even the arm rail of a park bench.
Yeah.
And do some bicep curls or tricep kickbacks.
That's great.
You can wrap it around your feet and hold the handles up by your shoulders to do some squats. There's stuff out there that you can use and exercise, and I have that kind of brain.
Yeah.
If I see it, we're going to figure out how to exercise with it.
I love that idea. I mean, because then it makes the actual act of just taking a walk a little more engaging. It changes things up for you. You know, I think that's more exciting for people.
It is, especially when spring comes around and we're so excited to be outside.
Yeah.
Let's go have fun. Let's grab a tube and just go walking.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the message, right? Is just find those ways, those little ways to stay active and keep moving.
It's not a big hurdle. It's not an hour and a half workout of 35 minutes of never-ending cardio and heavy weights and sets and reps and sets and reps. It's just a matter of being creative.
Yeah, gotcha. That's exciting. I think that's a good message for everybody, and I hope that people will go to your website and check out the things that you're doing. I would love to talk to you about some ways that we can partner up on things too.
That'd be great.
Yeah, because this is definitely something that I think can help a lot of people.
It can. I know it can.
Yeah, and it's important. I mean, to stay active when you're a grandparent or in retirement, it's just really important.
And think of the message that that's sending, the example that it set, like my dad has set for me. His mother set that for him. She started walking
Right.
with the mailman to be safe. 'Cause that's the same wife of my grandpa who had polio. So she started walking with him when she was 40,
Yeah.
and she lived to 101.
That's amazing.
So that's all she did.
Yeah.
She didn't have any exercise program, no weights or resistance bands or anything back then.
Yeah, right.
But so those examples of just what are we showing our kids, our grandchildren, what are they picking up, and how can they then use that as inspiration to have their own fitness routine?
Right.
And that carries off into nutrition too. They see what we eat.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think that's what we're all looking to do, right? Is to be a good example for our children, to make sure that we're developing healthy habits for ourselves and
Absolutely.
passing that on to the next generation. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you so much for your time today. This has
Thank
been
you.
just a great conversation.
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed being on the Health and Wellness Council with you and, helping out the senior community. But,
Yes.
it's been great, and I appreciate you being on the show.
Thanks for having me. This has been great. I agree.
All right. Thank you so much. Sounds of Health is brought to you by Nutmeg Insurance Advisors and recorded at the offices of Nutmeg Advisory Group. The podcast is produced by Jason Carubia and Dave McNiven with music by Rob Hames. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, X, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. Your support means a lot to us, and we appreciate it when you like, subscribe, and leave a review. If you know someone who you think would be a guest on the show, please email us at soundsofhealthpodcast@gmail.com. Each week, we spotlight the stories, people, and resources that inspire and motivate others to improve their health, and we're just getting started. Help us to share these sounds, and don't keep us a secret.